Merry Christmas, everybody. Please enjoy episode 148 of We Got This with Mark and Hal. But first, just a quick word. You're such a gift to us, the listeners, the community that's built around this show. Mark and I are so proud of what we do and that you're a part of it. And it just means so much to us. And I hope whatever you celebrate that you are having a great holiday season. And if you don't celebrate anything, I hope you're having just a great day. Anyway, Bay Area, we'll see you January 14th for our live show. That's SF Sketchfest for more info. And if you feel like giving us yet another gift, in addition to your friendship and listenership, go leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts. Those reviews are important. The more we get, the closer we get to more merch for all of you guys outside of our poster that is in the Max Fun store. And now, without any further ado, here's episode 148 of We Got This with Mark and Hal.
Hello, I'm Hal Lublin.
And I'm Mark Gagliardi.
Since the dawn of humanity, one issue has gone unsettled. With the fate of the world in the balance, we're here to settle, once and for all. Best Doctor Who.
That's right. Don't worry, everyone. We got this.
Podcasts should have a theme song. Podcasts should not have a theme song. Yes, they should. No, they shouldn't. They sound good. Yeah, but people are just going to skip past it. You know what? You're right. We got this.
Run! That was a quote from Doctor Who that was not fed to me by our guest, Joseph Scrimshaw, but I came up with on my own.
I feel like this is about to be the only episode so far of We Got This where clearly we don't got this.
Listen, you, the listeners, wanted this. You were like, who's the best doctor? And Mark's like, let's do every doctor that isn't Doctor Who. And we did that. And people were like, we want best doctor. Well, guess what?
We're doing Best Who. It's Cindy Lou. Asked and answered.
No.
We brought in an expert.
Yes.
You know him from Obsessed. You know him from everything that you're going to plug at the end. Anything you want to plug up front?
No. I'll do all my plugging at the end.
Great.
After I've earned it.
Podcast master Joseph Scrimshaw is with us and an expert on the Doctor Who franchise. Thank you for being here.
I am thrilled to be here on your couch.
This is very exciting.
Is the first problem that he called it a franchise?
No,
or is that correct?
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah.
All right.
Who's the best Doctor Who? So the character of Doctor Who.
It's hotly debated. It's hotly debated because in several versions of the credits, he is listed as Doctor Who. So some people who want to be double pedantic argue that it is okay to call him Doctor Who because the show itself has called him Doctor Who.
Ah, dang it. This bit is not going to work then of me calling him Doctor Who for the whole
Still going to be fingernails on a chalkboard for plenty of people. It's one of my favorite things about Doctor Who is like, let's create a science fiction show for people who are traditionally pedantic, and then let's name the show almost the main character's name, but not quite.
That's perfect. So tell us about your CV of Doctor Who.
Of what it is or my own relationship.
Your own personal relationship to Doctor Who.
My own relationship with it is not only do I love the show because it has all of this just audacity to be, we're going to tell the whole story of all of time and space on a relatively low budget. Yeah. We don't care. Let's go for it. And it's always a show about hope and kindness and all those great things, scary monsters. But for me, it was my first fandom that I had to like physically defend almost. Like, really? I liked Star Wars and I liked superheroes, but so did plenty of other kids. But it was the first one where like it physically got me assaulted in school.
Really?
Yes.
Really? I thought because now I feel like maybe it's just the world that I've lived in for so long. Like, I was over at Audrey Kearns and Brian Bradley's recording a thing, and who say hello, by the way.
Oh,
and not to you, Hal, to Joseph.
No, I understand.
And she's got on a Doctor Who TARDIS cardigan.
Yeah.
Like there's I see TARDISes everywhere.
It is a different world now than when I found it, So
it's not just that I have entered this world, it's this world has expanded and become super cool.
Massively. What is, referred to now as the classic series, which is, for our purposes of debating the Doctor, that's the first Doctor through the 7th, and then the 8th is a debate, because everything's got to be a debate. And then there's the new series starting with the 9th.
Right, and that was Eccleston onward.
Right. And that blew up into true, and perfectly dovetailed with pop culture exploding.
Right.
And becoming really mainstream, and the thought from my perspective of going into a hot topic, the scary place where the goths buy their jewelry, that there'd be like a
yeah,
Dr.
my mother
Who
thought
scarf.
that was the devil's store.
Yeah, right. Like that's entering, you go into the mall, but then you can enter Satan's mouth and you will be in Hot Topic, it has just become so mainstream. But when I found it as a kid, it was just this mysterious thing that was on late at night on the Sesame Street channel on
Now,
public television.
When you were watching it as a kid, were these old episodes? Because what was the gap between the first 8 doctors or 7, whatever. And when Eccleston took over.
I started watching in 86. Mm-hmm. Earlier than that, like 84. Okay. And it went off the air in 89. So like I had a lot of stuff that I was watching. Like on Friday night it was older episodes, and then on Saturday night it was newer episodes.
Right.
It might have been 85. So then there was this huge gap where it's like, yeah, Doctor Who's dead and it's never coming back. And it was just this very weird thing that was very hard to get into from an American perspective. The Doctor is mostly a pacifist. He breaks that sometimes, but a lot of the stories are about him trying to stop cool military dudes from blowing crap up. So it's like the opposite of A-Team.
Yeah, I can see how that went off the air in the United States in the 80s.
Yeah, so you had to be like an Uber, like Star Wars was the most popular thing in the world in the early 80s, and you were still like, if you know Jabba the Hutt's name, you're kind of a nerd, right. This was like taking that to such an extreme.
But there were still
Doctor Who.
over 800 episodes of this. Star Wars had at that point 3 movies. You had a 6-hour time devotion to this thing that is great to get on board with it.
But to that point, it's edited out, but
I know.
I just hit the dog clicker. This part's in. And I've never seen your eyes get that big before, Joseph. We know each other for several years now.
I knew what you were doing, but it's just such a funny mechanism to have a dog clicker in your hand.
It looks
gotta
like
take that out.
Like I'm trading the microphone.
Now you've trained me. I'm going to be afraid that if I say something stupid, I'll just hear the dog clicker and know. Hal's going to edit that out.
It's that old, David Ives, new choice.
Yeah.
Ding, sure thing.
Exactly.
But what I was going to say to that point was, now Mark goes over to Audrey and Brian's home, and Audrey's wearing a TARDIS sweater and their TARDIS dresses, and people go to Comic-Cons dressed as David Tennant or Matt Smith. And now, hopefully, women who also crossplay will be able to dress up as Jodie Whittaker, whatever that costume winds up being. But as a kid, my father watched Doctor Who, so I grew up with Tom Baker as Doctor Who. But I was afraid of the show because the end credits, the song scared me. I was like 3 years old.
It's too creepy.
But there wasn't a ton of costumes. I would just be like, why is Colin wearing a top hat? Like, he was the only person, there was only one kid my age, Colin Webb, who I knew that liked Doctor Who. But I knew how he was dressing up. It just seemed odd to me at the time. So I was like, nobody our age likes Doctor Who. Do they? Do they like Doctor Who? Like because it always felt dark and scary. Star Wars felt young and jokey and accessible.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of Doctor Who, especially in the Tom Baker era, has an element of horror. And it was scary for a lot of the time in Britain. The phrase of watching behind the sofa, like people from Britain understand as Doctor Who was legitimately terrifying. And when you watch it today, you can see the intent to make it terrifying. And sometimes, for the classic series, the new series is legitimately scary.
Sure.
With special effects. But it's just a reminder that in order to watch the classic series, it's sort of like traveling in time, because it was just such a different production style. Basically the BBC was set up to build a stage and film a soap opera or Shakespeare. And then those same people were like, aliens in time travel.
Right.
We can do that. So it's impressive for when it was created, and you get that result from people who grew up with it. Like, I've met people at conventions who grew up in the 60s and yes, that thing that looks so cheesy and fakey to you now, it terrified me, and I legitimately hid behind the sofa to watch the rest of the episode.
Yeah. I remember not the older episodes, just the theme song obviously was scaring me then, but the first Christopher Eccleston episode has living mannequins.
Yeah.
That episode is those mannequins are terrifying in that episode.
And those are from the classic series.
Those are I've watched several of the new series episodes, but I never saw any of the classic series. That to me, you mentioned that being scary to you. That to me did not seem too scary as a kid. It seemed so overly British.
Right. Oh, really?
I was like, this show is not for me when I was a kid, because like I would hear English accents and I would think this show's going to be way too smart for me. Like they're going to use big words. I'm not going to understand what's happening.
Yes.
Yeah. And it is very, very British.
I used to have this actual fantasy when I was a kid that the bullies would have an epiphany that they were too dumb to understand it, and they would come to me and say, please, please, can you explain Doctor Who? It's like the ultimate nerd fantasy.
That the bullies will want you to do their Doctor Who homework?
Yeah, because like, we admit it. It's too smart for us. We can't get it. Can you explain it, Joseph? Like,
I was no bully, but it was too smart for me.
So this is as deep cut as I can get.
Yeah.
I assume we're not going to count Peter Cushing's movies.
No. Yeah, we got to stay in the
We're not
canon
counting
of
Rowan Atkinson.
Yeah, not Curse of the Fatal Death. Yeah.
We're not going to count Richard E. Grant and the BBC radio dramas. Didn't he do the audio?
Yeah. So yeah, he did one specific. It gets really messy as soon as you get into it. So we're keeping it to like the main television show.
Sure. The first 8 Doctors, and then Eccleston through, what's her name? Jodie
Whittaker.
Jodie Whittaker.
And although it's Christmas Day, and you're listening to this on Christmas Day,
Oh, this is a Christmas episode?
Yes, this is the Christmas, because traditionally the new Doctor debuts on Christmas Day.
No, there's a new Doctor Who special on Christmas Day.
Damn it.
And several of the more recent regenerations.
Great. This is airing in January.
Yeah.
But
have
Jodie
been on a
Whittaker
Christmas
will
episode.
debut
Yes.
on Christmas
Yeah.
Day. So she's recused from the running here.
Absolutely.
Because she has no body of work to judge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just
So-
her weird, awesome costume. Besides that, yeah.
We're just picking white dudes right now.
Yeah.
Of varying ages.
But we have weeded out a couple of white dudes.
A couple
Sure.
of white dudes
Not the
are-
Peter Cushing movies.
Yes.
And there are a couple of like, there's a whole long series of audios, the Big Finish audio series.
Right.
Which, Uber fans will put that in. And there are a couple of those that are like, what if? So they've got cool people like David Warner playing the Doctor. But he's
Right.
like never officially been the Doctor.
Right.
That kind of stuff.
Can you, for us, go through, just chronologically, for those listeners who might not know Doctor Who, or for those hosts who might not know a lot about Doctor Who, go through these first 7 and then we'll stop, and then we'll talk about number 8, and then we'll talk about the new ones.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Where did this begin? Who is the first official Doctor?
The first Doctor was played by William Hartnell, and he was played as this very cranky, grumpy old man. He had this mysterious box of the TARDIS. He had a granddaughter, and then the very first episode, he basically kidnaps 2 of her teachers. They don't know what's going on with his super smart granddaughter, so they follow her back to her home. They encounter this cranky, eccentric guy, and they get in the TARDIS, and then he just kidnaps them. And that's not a plot divergence. That's an example of his character. So he's scientific, and he's intrigued and curious, but he's very grumpy and very alien, and he's not the action star at all. He can barely do anything.
Right.
Okay.
Like, he gets knocked down by a hard wind. That might actually be a plot point at some point.
A very hard evil wind.
Yeah, a hard evil wind.
His
I'm
worst
sure.
enemy was a fan. Just a good box fan. That was it.
It'll take him over.
Now, this was 1963 through 68. He did 4 seasons and 139 episodes.
Yeah. So
That's a lot. That's a hefty run.
yeah.
Now describe, but before we go further into this, describe the character of the Doctor.
In general,
In general, what that character is. He time travels. He is from all different, he can be from any era. I don't understand.
I just
He
love
has 8 reindeer.
people who are listening who wanted this are just scratching at their speakers right now. Like, don't tell us what the Doctor is. We know who the Doctor is.
And, please
So
tell
please
me
tell
what the
us
Doctor is.
who the Doctor is.
Mark.
This is for the fans who like our food episodes.
What happens when a Doctor and a Doctor love each other very much?
When a Time Lord is very sick of his home planet Gallifrey, when he feels it has become too removed and too egalitarian, he will steal a TARDIS. So that the Doctor, basically his backstory is he got frustrated with his homeworld, Gallifrey. He wanted to see the world. He wanted to be able to meddle in time and space. There's many times and moments where people could be rescued. There are other fixed points that you can't change. And the Doctor is very much, he's an interventionist. He wants to get involved. He wants to help people. He's got this internal contrast that comes up again and again with these Doctors, where he is an alien who feels he is smarter and better than everyone and can feel time. He can feel the earth moving when he's standing on it. and yet at the same time, he is the most compassionate person you've ever met who can talk to you for 3 minutes.
When he's not kidnapping you.
When he's not kidnapping you. And then he can just say, like, Mark, what's your favorite drink? And when you finish telling him the best cocktail you've ever had, he'll say, that's the whole story of the universe, of all time and space contained in Mark went out and had a great Manhattan. That's humanity. That's the universe.
I'm going to have a Manhattan tonight and think about that.
But that's the central contrast of his character. Mm-hmm. Practically, he travels in time and space, and he fights monsters and runs away from his feelings.
And the reason he is regenerated time and time again is what?
It is one of the many mysterious powers of the Time Lords.
Okay.
So the Time Lords get more and more defined as the series goes on, but there's always elbow room to give them more powers. But one of their powers is when their bodies get damaged or old, they have this internal energy and they regenerate into, up to this point, a different white man. Right. But now, it can be somewhere.
Now, originally this was a device that they had to use because they no longer had William Hartnell. Had he passed away?
He was getting really old and really having a hard time. Just you can watch it now as an adult and clearly see, like, oh wow, the doctor totally made up that line. That was not in the script.
It's like
but they had to keep filming because they're on a time schedule.
Like
and that line was, "No thanks, I don't feel like running from here to there."
Exactly.
It's like those last couple Johnny Cash albums where you're like, oh, is this going to be the song where he drops in the middle of it?
All he sang about for 2 albums was how he's about to die. I'm gonna die. Okay, Johnny, can we do one of the other songs off this album?
Sure. Death awaits me. I'm gonna regenerate.
Yeah.
I'm coming back as Matt Smith.
So the first time they did it, it was a risk because they didn't know how it would work.
Yes.
Like whether audiences would accept that, but then it became now they can recast it anytime.
And I met my first person. He's somebody who's written for some of the Doctor Who novelizations. It told me at a convention last year that he got mad. He was old enough to watch William Hartnell on TV and got mad. It's like, this next Doctor's not my doctor, and rage quit. Back in the 60s. So, the proud tradition of geekdom has been going on for a long time.
Good. Now you mentioned, forgive my ignorance. You mentioned, Time Lords plural.
Yeah.
There are other people from his home planet that are involved in the stories?
Yeah. So like one of his main enemies is the Master, who recently regenerated into a woman, and then she was, called Missy, short for Mistress, instead of the Master. But yeah, we meet lots of different characters in his trials and travails with Gallifrey, a big part of the plots.
Great. Because the only thing, from what I have seen in my limited knowledge, is just he seemed always outside of whatever the story was, almost in like a Star Trek way of, this is the thing of the week that we have to solve.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. There's never any episodes like where there are episodes where he'll spend some time on Gallifrey, but he's always an outsider. He always ends up running away.
Serialized. Never like hard serialization of the story. I'm sure there are elements that scatter throughout, but it was a story of the week.
Yeah, for the most part, there are some seasons that have continuing, and the third Doctor, which we'll get to in a second, is serialized, basically.
Okay. So let's get back to what we were talking about.
Yeah. So he regenerates into the second Doctor, and he's still not like a super action hero. He still has a companion. So the Doctor always has companions. Right. Usually humans traveling with him, so he can explain stuff to them.
Right. Sometimes a robot dog.
Do you think
other sidekicks in other properties are like, man, how come I gotta be called a sidekick? The Doctor has a companion. And yet Tonto's over here to the Lone Ranger like, what gives, bro? Sidekick, really?
It is a much more illustrious title, I think.
It is. I love that, companion. So anyway, sorry to keep
please. It's your podcast. Interrupt me as much as you can. I welcome that. But yeah, so the second Doctor is played by Patrick Troughton, and he is kind of described as a cosmic hobo. He is much more funny. He is avuncular. He is much kinder. And when he gets frustrated with aliens, he just sort of like loses his temper in like a fun comic way. And like his catchphrase is, "Oh my giddy aunt." Like, horrible monsters will shoot at him, and he'll run away, and he'll jump in this funny way and say, "Oh my giddy aunt." And, he's really, really charming, really lovable.
He did 2 seasons of the show. And that was 119 episodes.
Yeah,
for Patrick Troughton.
Patrick Troughton, yes. And I met him. I'm going to say which ones I met, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a signing at a convention in Minneapolis, back in the day. And I remember he was eating a fish fillet from Burger King or McDonald's. I can't remember which one.
McDonald's is the Filet-O-Fish. It's the Irish
Fish.
one.
So then it was Burger King.
Right.
Have you done that episode? Which fish burger is better?
We'd have to get Trouton for it.
I have to get Trouton for it. I just remember that. Like
Trouton was eating a fish burger.
It was a bit on the nose. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. I remember that because it was the doctor eating Burger King. And still, it's amazing. It's the doctor. He's a big contender for me because he brought comedy to Doctor Who. Like, certainly there was some witty lines. Element. But he brought it into the Doctor's character that the Doctor's super quirky and likes to have fun and likes people.
Right. And that's something that's remained. So he's a lot of the DNA of the last few Doctors comes from his performance.
Yeah, a lot of Matt Smith is directly Patrick Troughton.
And David Tennant too, a little bit, right? Because he's kind of goofy.
Yeah, but Matt Smith even more so. Like, Matt Smith is on record saying, I love this whimsical, but, like, he's taking everything seriously.
Right.
Yeah. But he's just sort of like, oh, life's fun. Like,
also introduced the sonic screwdriver. I'm just going to throw little tidbits that, thanks to Kate McManus, I now know.
In Fury from the Deep, I believe, the episode. Anyway.
All right, and so then after we're up to 1969. Who took over in 1970?
Then that would be John Pertwee. And John Pertwee,
the most British last name out of all of these,
for
Pertwee.
Sure. And he, in a lot of ways, I mean, it's all British, but he is very, very British. So he was the first physically active Doctor. So he knew Venusian Aikido. Cool. So he was the one who started to step up, and he didn't necessarily have to have, and this is obviously not my sexism, but the past sexism of this television show, there were always male companions before to do punching. Mm-hmm. And he was the first one who's like, I'll do the punching when needed. There's not a ton of punching on Doctor Who. But then he also gets serialized, so because the Time Lords punish him for being a rogue Time Lord and intervening, and they stick him on Earth. So he is trapped on Earth with this military group called UNIT that deals with alien threats. So to answer your question about the serialized, he is serialized for quite a while.
Okay.
Where it's like a cast, like a solid cast, and it changes less week to week.
Okay.
All right, and he was there for 5 seasons, 128 episodes. These guys are doing some serious numbers on this show. Like, we're already up to almost 400 episodes.
Yeah.
Just 3 Doctors.
And then the episodes, this is serialized, so like the 4 episodes would be one serial. So it'd be like one story.
Right.
Okay.
So the serialization.
But each episode would still be a half hour, an hour, or?
Yeah, like 20 minutes.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then after that, we go to 1974 to 1981, the longest serving Doctor, 172 episodes. This is Tom Baker.
Yes.
Tell us about Tom Baker.
Oh, well, so Tom Baker is, I think, when people think of Doctor Who, or if they've only ever heard of Doctor Who from a joke on The Simpsons, it's Tom Baker, because he was there forever. He has the iconic scarf and the hat.
Did he introduce the scarf and that, or was he the only one that wore them? Or
yeah.
Both of those?
Yeah. I mean, other Doctors have had hats on and off. The scarf is
the famous scarf.
The long Doctor Who scarf, the iconic thing, is Tom Baker. Tom Baker played the Doctor is truly alien. So he had a culmination of everything that had come before. He was physically active. He could do, punching and running, and he was very physical. He has a great sense of humor, but he was just, and is just, a weirdo. He just a very eccentric human being, and he would just do weird things all the time.
Is Tom Baker an eccentric human being, or his version of the Doctor was?
Oh my, yes.
Did you ever meet him?
Yes. I went to a signing. I briefly lived in London for a few months with my future wife, Sarah, and we went to a signing. And he was doing photos, and then he saw that Sarah was with me. Sarah is the name of one of his famous companions. So he asked me, what is your partner's name? I was like, it's Sarah. And he always says her name in this very specific way, so it was really fun for me. He's like, ooh, Sarah.
Perfect.
And he specifically asked to take a picture with her, and he's smiling real big, and I took a picture, and then as soon as I took it, I was like, this is weird, because like that's the Doctor, and I love him, but if a random 70-year-old man, if a random 70-year-old man was like, "Can I take a picture with your wife?" I wouldn't be like, "Yeah, that's so great." So I immediately asked Sarah, like, "Is this a thing? Is this okay?" And she's like, "Oh no, it's fine. It's
also,
fun,
it is a little
fun and charming."
We're asking you and not her.
Yeah. Well, he asked her if he could take the picture. He just asked me what her name was, but still a little old school.
And what was he eating from Burger King? Was it the onion rings? He was eating onion rings.
There was an air of sadness about. So I think that was from Burger King.
So he's eating Arby's.
He's eating Arby's. No. No, I think he was just not eating at all. I think he was eating the love of the fans.
You shouldn't be eating while your fans are there. You're going to get grease stains on their nice artwork that they've brought for you to sign.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but I mean,
hold on. Let me put this sandwich down on this sketch that you did.
Yeah, so I think he is a huge contender because he is kind of everything that the Doctor can be.
Yeah, that's to me is the quintessential Doctor, certainly of the classic era. And every single Doctor that you're going to name is somebody's favorite Doctor.
Right.
I don't think there's one that even Davison. I think everybody likes all of the Doctors. Everybody has a different favorite, but I think that Tom Baker is one of those that it'd be hard to argue against him being a finalist.
Yeah, I would think so.
It's a question that we use a lot on the show when we are trying to pick the best of something, is we will use the most of something. Would Tom Baker be a contender for it sounds from this like, while he's in contention for best Doctor, he is definitely, it sounds like, the most Doctor Who.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think one of the things is he stayed for 7 years. Mm-hmm. He is so committed and a great actor for the first half. The second half, it went to his head. He got frustrated, didn't like some of the changes, and he just starts doing weird things to do weird things.
Oh, like to sabotage the show?
Not quite sabotage, but you can just say
just to make his own cool choices.
Well, yeah. I mean, you guys both know as actors, you know when you're doing a show and somebody's like, you're not doing the show, you're doing your own performance.
Right.
Like that's sort of like, hey, what if for no reason I just laid down in this scene? Like, and the director's like, I don't think that serves this Shakespeare. Yeah. Like, I don't think Polonius would lie down right now.
But you're like,
I did once do a performance of Aladdin where I played the genie completely in a British accent for no reason other than I felt like doing the show in a British accent that day.
In high school, my freshman year, I did a show called Is There Life After High School, where I had to do a monologue as a 15-year-old boy, looked like a 12-year-old boy, but I was playing a high school graduate who was coming back and was telling off all the people who had ever wronged him. Mm-hmm. And the dialogue was changed to say your hotshot friends and your hotshot girls or whatever.
What was it originally?
It was the other S word, the bad one. And I kept adding the curses back in over the course of the weekend of doing the show.
Just one at a time?
Just for fun. Didn't serve anything.
Wait, what? This play was called Life After High School?
Is There Life After High School?
Oh, man, that's the most high school play.
Yeah.
Like we had one that was making the rounds when I was in high school called, it was Voices from the High School.
Like that sounds like a Doctor Who episode.
All right. So Tom Baker. Let's move on to Peter Davison. Not to be confused with Pete Davidson, who is wonderful on Saturday Night Live,
yes,
but has never played the Doctor.
Not yet. Not yet. And he's not British, so we'll see.
He's very American.
So Peter Davison, I think the first four Doctors, from my perspective, built on one another. And Peter Davison was a change, because this is the first time they went younger. So he was younger than the Doctor had been, and he was the first Doctor to kind of play old soul in a younger body. He had a lot of younger companions on his TARDIS. Like, it varies how many companions the Doctor has, but at different times, the fifth Doctor has like up to 4. And there's sometimes he almost feels like this sort of babysitter who's just trying to keep them away from tragedy.
Oh, so
like he has
4 simultaneously. It's not always one companion at a time.
No,
he would have multiple companions at once.
Yeah, and there's even a tiny little bit of soap opera where we actually like within the TARDIS see their bedrooms and things like that. They give it just a little bit more weight. So I read all the Doctor Who novelizations, and they always describe him as open face.
Okay. Like a turkey sandwich.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that, now I grew up just thinking that was a thing because I read it in Doctor Who books. But when I say open face to you guys, what does that mean?
I only think of a turkey sandwich.
Yeah, I think of turkey, maybe a roast beef sandwich too.
Yeah.
I love roast
Yeah.
open face
So
sandwich.
I guess the fifth Doctor is a roast beef sandwich.
He's a roast
the
beef
most,
sandwich.
yeah, it's the most delicious of the doctors.
Yeah.
He's the most
Completely
delicious.
He's the
of
doctor who
doctors.
tastes best with horseradish.
He should also be noted for in the Fourth Doctor's era, there was a new producer who started to go bigger with everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we start getting the Fifth Doctor's costume is just what a cricket player wears. And
wow.
it's a cricket outfit, and then he has on his lapel a celery stalk. And a deal was made by the actor.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just randomly wear a celery stalk if at some point it can be explained why. And it was in his final episode right before he regenerated.
Wow.
So that's
69 episodes he did, 3 seasons. Fewer than these previous 3 doctors. That why was it? Why did he wear the celery stalk?
It alerted him to a specific kind of thing he was allergic to.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was his canary in the coal mine.
Yeah.
All right. So after Pete Davison, we have from 1984, we're up to the 80s now because Tom Baker was there for so long.
Yeah.
We're up to the 80s. It's now 1984 to 86, 3 seasons, 31 episodes. Colin Baker.
Yeah. So Colin Baker is, I think, one of the doctors that has had the hardest time because he was the most controversial. He has the costume that you might have seen that is designed to be jarring, to be painful, because it's a patchwork quilt of just random colors.
This I have seen, yes.
Yeah, it is bright and loud and painful. And there was an attempt made to be like, what if the doctor wasn't right when he regenerated? So like when he first regenerates, at one point he tries to strangle his companion.
So he was deliberately the doctor that regenerated poorly.
Yeah. It's like,
wow. It's a fun thing for an actor to play.
Yeah, exactly. It's
like,
one of those
you're
things.
going to be the doctor, but you're not going to be the best one.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those ideas you pitch like in a writer's room, like that's such a great idea, but not.
But we shouldn't do that, right? We're not going to do this.
Because then it ends up being, kind of not fun for your main character to be not great. So and there was a lot more violence with him, and he played the doctor very brash, very arrogant, very full of himself.
Okay. Now moving on to the one doctor I've met, at Dragon Con.
Yeah.
Sylvester McCoy, who was a lovely gentleman.
Yes, he is.
Not a tall guy.
No.
He's a short little man.
Yeah. Tell us about Sylvester McCoy, who was there for 3 seasons also, 42 episodes, 1987 to 89.
Yeah, so Sylvester has he harkened back a little bit to Patrick Troughton. He had a real whimsical air about him, because of Sylvester McCoy's actual background. He played the spoons and had a sense of like circus and flair about him. But then that gave away.
I like this guy already.
Yeah, so this is great. And then that gave away but he was the most like Machiavellian doctor, where suddenly things were revealed of like, I've hidden a weapon on Earth for centuries because I know this conflict's coming and I'm going to use it, and reintroduce like some mystery to the doctor's past of like, well, you think you know everything about Gallifrey and the Time Lords, but maybe who is the doctor?
Did they change any of the mythology of it, or did his doctor just add things to that mythology?
He mostly added, but the mythology has always been time travel, so maybe something changed.
Yeah,
that's true.
They can easily retcon stuff.
Let's pause for a second and just talk about this element of time travel to it. How often are they not in, you say they travel through time and space.
Yeah.
Is there do some doctors prefer more time travel stuff, and do some doctors prefer more space travel things where they are in the contemporary timeline, or the contemporary, not timeline, but the contemporary times, and they are just on different planets doing things?
Yeah. I think it comes down to the companions. Like, there are some times that if they have a story that involves being more locked into the companions, they'll spend more time on present day Earth because they're always interacting with their companions. And then they have a relationship with the budget.
Like, very good point.
When the series came back with the Ninth Doctor, there are a lot of episodes on Earth in places that just happen to look like Cardiff because that's where they filmed.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, great. So, let's talk now about this ended, you said it ended in 1989. The first 8 doctors, Sylvester McCoy, the last, or the 7th doctor, ended with after 7 doctors.
Yeah.
Why is tell us about the Eighth Doctor and why he is controversial.
Okay, so there's a 1996 TV movie that was a product of both the BBC and an American company. I can't remember which one right now, but it was aired on Fox. And imagine the perfect compromise between British and American aesthetics for 1996. So it is the most action a British television has ever seen.
It's an action-packed Merchant Ivory film?
Yeah, and the least interesting action Americans ever, like there's a motorcycle chase. And if you're an old school fan of Doctor Who, it's like, oh, wow, he rode a motorcycle and he kind of pecked a woman on the lips a little bit. What? Ooh. And like from an American perspective in 1996, like, this is like 2 years after Pulp Fiction came out. We're not, we're not blown away.
Stabbing chests with heroin antidotes.
Yeah. But the Doctor himself, Paul McGann, is like very gothic, very optimistic and peaceful and loving and kind of excited to see the world with fresh eyes. Mm-hmm. And he goes on to have a massive career in the Big Finish audio series. But that's his only main episode on television.
This actor went on to do this. Great. So now we are moving into, it's post 1989, post 1996. Now, why is that controversial? Just because he did one TV movie with an American company. It wasn't an official like BBC serialized or series Doctor Who.
It's controversial whether or not to include him with the classic series or the new series, or is he his third own thing?
Ah,
right.
It's really looking for something stupid to fight about.
And doesn't John Hurt fall somewhere between 7 and 8 or 8? Or between 8 and 9?
He is between 8 and 9.
Okay. So, also not going to be the best Doctor, but he doesn't appear until way later.
Yeah.
But he is, in the canon of Doctor Who, he falls before the modern incarnation.
Exactly. Right before the 50th anniversary, they got Paul McGann, the 8th Doctor, back to shoot this little 5-minute thing where he regenerates into the War Doctor, John Hurt, who is a super violent version of the Doctor who just lives to fight the Daleks in the Time War.
Right. Yeah. And he was the Doctor for 5 minutes of screen time?
One episode, yeah.
Yeah.
One episode.
Yeah, and then he came back. He was in the 3 Doctor, when all 900 Doctors came together.
Yeah.
At the end. Anyway, I'm doing a great job describing this. Here's what I'm going to do an even better job of. We're going to take a break right now.
Great.
When we come back, we're going to go into the modern era, and then we're going to select the best Doctor Who. You'll find out after this.
Hi, everybody. I'm Justin McElroy.
And I'm Dr. Sydney McElroy.
Every week, we release a medical history podcast called Sawbones.
We go over the history of the dumbest, grossest, weirdest stuff humans have been doing to each other since the dawn of mankind.
But it's a funny show.
But it's also so disgusting and stomach-turning, you won't believe it.
But it's also like, funny. It's funny.
It is the wildest, grossest, nastiest stuff you can imagine.
It's a real hoot. It's called Sawbones, and we release it every week on iTunes, wherever podcasts are sold, and right here on MaximumFun.org.
Hey, Max Fun listeners, it's Jesse, the founder of MaximumFun.org. I have some pretty incredible holiday news for you. So you remember last year's Max Fun Drive? We offered pins for all of our shows to folks who donated, and we agreed to donate all of the net revenue from the pins to the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank. Well, I, just yesterday, had the chance to hand a giant check to a representative from the food bank. And you're not going to believe how much money you gave to give needy families food. Over $100,000. $100,365 to be specific. That means nearly 500,000 meals for families who need food this year. I'm really proud of every single Maximum Fun donor who made this possible. It's a remarkable achievement, a beautiful thing. It completely obliterated my idea and expectation of what we might be able to do this year. So, as you head into 2018, please be proud of what this amazing community did for hungry families in the Los Angeles area where Max Fun is based. If you'd like to keep the love rolling, go to lafoodbank.org/maximumfun. That's lafoodbank.org/maximumfun, and you can make a tax-deductible donation there. Every dollar that you give means 4 meals for needy families. Thanks to all of you who support everything that we do, and thanks for your incredible contribution to folks who need it here in our hometown.
And we're back. And now Christopher Eccleston is the Doctor, but only for one season.
Yeah. And then he regenerates, which is super sad because he's amazing. He basically plays the Doctor as a PTSD victim because he's coming out of this time war.
See, I think I saw some Christopher Eccleston ones, and he didn't have a Doctor Who feel very much to me. And maybe it was because I had right before that, or right around the time that I saw this, seen 28 Days Later, where he is also a horrific, brutally sadistic, but forced to be so because of a zombie apocalypse military guy.
Yeah.
And in this, he's got PTSD. It feels more like a character Christopher Eccleston is playing. But he's, it seems like a Christopher Eccleston, to me, it seemed like, oh, here's a movie star who's playing this, character with PTSD and putting his version of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think
which doesn't feel as British and Doctor Who.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the new series is definitely trying to land on its feet by being as popular as it can be, but he incorporates a lot of the elements of previous Doctors. And if this was not who's the best Doctor, but who's my favorite Doctor, I would fight for the 9th. He's amazing. He does such an amazing acting job.
He's a very good actor. He's Christopher Eccleston. He's awesome.
Yeah, I liked Christopher Eccleston, and I don't want to shortchange him too much in this episode, but I liked him until I saw David Tennant, and then I was like, oh, they've fully realized it now. And he has David Tennant has every advantage coming into it. Not to say he's a better actor than Christopher Eccleston or anything like that. But by then they'd figured out what the modern version was. They had more budget, so he goes into space.
Right.
Yeah.
I like David Tennant a lot.
Okay.
Let's not dive into this quite yet. We're still going through our timeline of them.
You want to talk more about Destro? No, that was Arnold Vosloo. Who did he play? He was somebody in G.I. Joe. I think he was Destro.
Christopher Eccleston?
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Maybe he was. Or maybe it was Arnold Vosloo. Who knows? Was Christopher Eccleston playing Arnold Vosloo? Is Arnold Vosloo a character that Christopher Eccleston plays?
Hal, you're spiraling. You're spiraling.
That's right, I am. Spiraling up to the truth.
All right, so we mentioned, Christopher Eccleston. We will come back to him. We know he's your favorite. Let's talk about David Tennant. David Tennant came in, for 3 seasons, 47 episodes.
Yeah. And David Tennant is responsible for Hot Topic. Put it that way. David
Tennant is the one that made him super cool and
yeah.
Hip.
Yeah, I mean, the return with Christopher Eccleston was successful, but David Tennant playing it with so much youth. David Tennant was really inspired by Peter Davison, the first Doctor to be, an old soul in a young body. And right. David Tennant, I think it's really successful. It clearly in popularity. I'm super cheeky, like to make jokes, sing the Ghostbusters theme song while I'm fighting monsters. Super cheeky, wacky, or else I'm crying in the rain. I am a serious, angry, lonely god. And he really played both of those extremes.
He is the one that everyone either wants to sleep with, hang out with, or be.
Yeah. Or complain about, because.
Are a lot of fans not fans of Tennant?
If you start with the classic series, he was one of the biggest breaks to make the Doctor, as cheeky and as romantic. Like, there had always been a little bit of romance, but he made a lot of jokes about just straight up being like horny.
Right.
And had it like an explicitly, romantic with the eventual possibility of physical interaction.
Which the British don't like. It's too much by far.
The only thing stiff is your upper lip.
But if you remove any of that classic series bias, clearly everybody loved that, and he made the show what it is. So you can't just fault it too much. Just an amazing amount of energy.
There is a great episode that you will know the name of probably when I bring it up, where he is in a hospital and one of his old companions is there as like a nurse. So he's got his old companion with his new companion, and then K9 is brought back into the mix.
Yeah. He's in a school and she's a reporter.
But that's right.
Did he have a dog companion?
Yeah.
He had a robot dog named K9.
Yeah.
Oh,
affirmative.
This show sounds really fun, you guys.
You should watch it.
Let's just sit down and watch all the thousands of episodes.
Because every episode I've watched, I've been just in love with.
Yeah.
The Girl Who Waited was my introduction.
Oh, yeah.
So we're about to get to my first Doctor.
Okay, yeah.
Which that episode, 2-part episode, right? Yeah, it was And it was, boy, I felt like I was just watching a great movie.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we get to the 11th Doctor, and
that's Matt Smith.
Matt Smith. Matt Smith, I have not met, but I almost drank a beer that he left over at a party at San Diego Comic-Con.
Just so you could be like, this is Matt Smith's beer.
Yes.
That is hilarious. Or you have a drinking problem.
Anyway, my wife kindly stopped me. I was like, you don't need to do that. That won't change anything about your life. But I wanted to. But
3 seasons of Matt Smith.
3 seasons of Matt Smith. He continues the David Tennant energy, but he really goes for the like, I'm a quiet soul who really knows I've lived a long time and I just want the people around me to be happy. And he goes back to being really alien. There are stories where he just doesn't get how people interact.
Right.
Like there could be an episode where he comes to do We Got This, and he would be like, we're talking to the microphones. We got a Zoom recorder on the table, and like Matt Smith, Doctor, would be talking into the Zoom recorder. Cause it's just sort of like, oh, I don't get human things.
Which sounds like a wonderful combination of what David Tennant brought to it with this youth and, sex appeal.
Yeah.
Plus this very old school British version of the alien fish out of water.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like there's some Tom
Which
Baker
was Tom
in there.
Baker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. All right. So, 3 seasons of Matt Smith. And then we got.
Did he have the best companions? And Amy Pond
was great.
Arthur Darvill.
I mean, there is the fandom around modern Doctor Who is so powerful that is a really incendiary question to ask who the best companions are. But it's certainly novel. It was really rare interesting for him to have a couple who was in a committed relationship with Amy and her husband Rory, in that they're all, like this triumvirate of people who loved each other, but. You know, and he even got to the point, which was totally new for Doctor Who, where he dumped him off on Earth and came back from every once in a while. So there's a ton of novel, breaking the rules with his companions.
Interesting. Fun Karen Gillan story that also tells you how big of a Whovian I am. The first time I met her, she was doing Thrilling Adventure Hour, and I thought she was a Kickstarter backer who had paid to be at rehearsal. I was like, oh, she's very good looking. She was just sitting...
Yeah. She's very kind. And that was one of my favorite rehearsals we ever had, because in that rehearsal, it was Chris Hardwick, Weird Al, and Karen Gillan. And as rehearsal ended, we were rehearsing in the back of Nerdist, Meltdown Comics.
Yeah.
I get Nerdist, Meltdown, and Nerd Melt. Of course, they're all jumbled in my brain.
Sure.
We're in the back of Meltdown Comics rehearsing. And, as we finished rehearsal, we broke and we were all about to leave. And Ben Blacker stopped the 3 of them and was like, hey, can you guys stagger your exits? Because I think if the Nerdist, Amy Pond, and Weird Al all walk out of the back room at once, people's heads are going to explode.
It sounds like the start of a joke.
Yeah, right?
It really does.
Anyway, shout out to Karen Gillan.
Yeah, she's
a great
great
companion.
Yeah.
So now
actor.
we move to the most recent Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
I had to.
Yeah.
I had to throw in one.
Keep it coming.
The most recent Doctor, Peter Capaldi.
Tell
us about Capaldi. Tell us about Peter
I call
Capaldi.
him the f***ity doctor because I only know those memes that were going around right before he became doctor. I've never seen any of his episodes because he actually says that word, which has been edited, of course. But some of you know what it is.
Yeah. I am spacing on the other show he was on, but he played a character on a show that swore a bunch. So that was the meme going into. He is. I would fight with myself to name him my favorite Doctor. He is amazing.
Wow.
I think he's one of the best actors to ever play the Doctor. He's one of the best comedians, certainly, to play the Doctor. His first season, they wrote him jokes, and then they're like, he doesn't need us to write jokes. He will decide which lines are funny, and he will make them funny.
Wow.
With his power.
Very cool.
Yeah, he just has such presence, and he is, it's a great story of him. He is an uber nerd for a long time. He wrote in angry letters to like Doctor Who magazines, like questioning the decisions of the editors as a child.
Oh, I love this guy.
Yeah, so
like the fan got to have the part.
Yeah. As a fan, what he wanted to be is, he's like, I don't want to decide what my Doctor is. I want to be all the Doctors. And he really successfully did capture
elements of each one.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, okay. These are all the Doctors. Jodie Whittaker, of course, is recused. Can be revisited later. In my mind, it sounds like the finalists are, correct me if I'm wrong, I see 4 finalists. I see Tom Baker, David Tennant, Matt Smith, and Peter Capaldi.
Wow, 3 from the new.
Is that correct? Or do we just say if there were 2 finalists, it would be Matt Smith and
And Tom Baker. Tom Baker's a finalist.
You can't. David Tennant must be in the finals because the show might not have made it without David Tennant.
Sure.
I mean, and I was not a super big fan of him myself when he came on. I've come to my peace with David Tennant.
Right. Well, because he was such a departure from the show that you grew up loving.
Yeah. And when he was on, I was like, that's what this show is going to be now. And then when his tenor was done, I was like, oh, that's an interpretation of the Doctor. And now I can go back and enjoy it as an interpretation instead of the forever new direction of Doctor Who.
So would the three of them be finalists? Is there anybody from the classic era that you think should also be brought in?
I think Patrick Troughton. I think the second Doctor, because
the one who introduced the comedy to it.
Yeah, the show would have died, and he truly did introduce comedy.
Okay.
Yeah.
With that in mind.
So yeah, what are our criteria?
I think it's in my mind it's who's the most Doctor.
Who is the most Doctor?
Who's the most Doctor?
And that would be.
So there's that. There's maybe strength of story, like if there are great story arcs that the character participated in. We can't delve into companions. I don't think we should delve into companions. I think they're their own category. Who is the best companion may be different than who is the best Doctor.
I think that
they may not be matched.
I think that you can argue the chemistry because the quality of the companion by themselves, that's one thing. But if you have a good companion with good chemistry with the Doctor, it massively elevates the Doctor. And some people that I would have on the list got damaged because they don't have the best chemistry with their companions.
Right. And that is important. Of any of the finalists that we've named, of those four, are there any that would be eliminated because they don't have chemistry with their companions?
This pains me so much. I'm gonna literally weep blood on your couch out of pain.
Wow.
Oh, no.
I don't think you know how pain works.
I'm just.
If you're weeping blood, it's for other reasons that are way more significant than the pain, and you should see a doctor.
I admit it. I'm a James Bond villain. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Le Chiffre.
It's Le Chiffre.
That's actually just something Mads Mikkelsen can do. A lot of people don't realize that.
It's a party trick.
Yeah, they just worked it in.
Like the kid from Stranger Things. Like, oh, you got this thing. We're just going to work it into the storyline.
Yeah, Mads Mikkelsen on the bottom of his resume it says driver's license, accents, improv, Blood Weeper.
Oh my god. What pains you?
I think as much as I think Peter Capaldi is amazing, his story arcs have kind of been up and down. In how well they've strung together. He's had some absolutely classic episodes. His last season was amazing, and he had an amazing companion. But some of the scripts have been really uneven, and that has harmed him. So if you're going to go on like the quality of the stories and the quality of the companions, he had one companion that a lot of people think kind of overstayed
chemistry.
The story.
Chemistry with these
companions. And it's nobody's fault. Her story just got changed 8 times.
Okay. So does that mean Peter Capaldi is eliminated?
Gotta eliminate someone, right?
Yeah, I know people say we kowtow to our guests, but in this case, Joseph
we are
knows
going to do it because
we do.
You know way more than we do.
Yeah, but it's your podcast, so you tell me what else. You've told
correct.
me that. Okay,
it feels to me like so what we have left is we have the most Doctor Who Doctor.
Okay,
we have the one who changed everything and built this program back up.
Yeah.
And then we have Matt Smith, who was a combination of the two. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Yeah. So who else still is in the running?
Those three, right?
Sounds like it's Troughton, Baker, and
no,
and
Smith
Tennant.
is out. Tennant is out. So Troughton, Baker, Smith, and Tennant.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I forgot about
Capaldi
Troughton
is eliminated.
Okay.
So now we're down to 4.
Okay. So I'll offer you guys some stuff and see if you think that that bears elimination. So a lot of episodes are lost from William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton's era. So Patrick Troughton, you just have fewer stories that you can watch. He's got a great companion. He's got a Scottish companion named Jamie who's with him for most of the time.
Because he did 119 episodes.
3.
It's really that few?
No, for like his full serials, like full stories that you can watch beginning to end. I don't know off the top of my head, but like 8?
That's right, because they taped over their tapes.
Yeah.
Didn't they? It was like
the BBC taped over their tapes?
They had like one VHS. They had like one tape. And they just get, they're like, well, we're going to break it out again. I guess we'll tape over it.
Yeah, the thought that some American people would be like debating who's the best Doctor, in 1968 was not on anybody's mind about the longevity of this series. So, I mean, Troughton has less fewer episodes to watch. Does that make a difference? You guys are the absolute judges of decision making.
It feels like it does. It feels like, as far as like the impact on society that character has had, and each individual's contribution to that, while his contribution of comedy is huge, he doesn't have the canon that the other guys have.
Yeah, I think he's in there, and I think we've paid him his due very well for what he instilled.
Mm-hmm.
And while he was good at it, it doesn't mean that somebody, just because he brought humor doesn't mean he was the funniest.
I'll ask you this as well.
And so to be the first is great, does not mean you're the best. It means you were the first. It means you're important in the history.
Mm-hmm.
And you should be noted for that. But I don't think it means you're the best.
Can I just call you when I need to make decisions in life, Hal?
Yes, of course.
Is he going to be number one?
Is he going to be number one?
Yeah. Is he going to be the best? Or if like, that's ultimately also our answer to when we get down to like 2s, 3s, and 4s. If they're not going to be number one,
okay,
we've given him his due.
He's literally not the most Doctor Who. So yes, I think poor Patrick Troughton has to
shout out to Patrick Troughton.
Shout out to Patrick Troughton
and his filet of fish sandwich.
So we're down to 10.
And if he had a Big Mac, he would be Patrick Beefton.
Can I just interject very quickly that I have got to meet Sylvester McCoy at DragonCon as well, and I ate pizza with him while watching an episode of Matt Smith Doctor Who.
Weird.
Which is pretty high end.
Yeah.
Wow. So we're now down to 3.
Yep.
Sylvester McCoy's favorite Doctor, Matt Smith, David Tennant, and Tom Baker. I think at this point that we should eliminate either Tennant or Smith.
I think so too.
I feel like one of them is going to have to go up against Tom Baker. I came into this thinking in my brain the finals are going to be Tennant versus Baker. But then I thought, I bet Joseph is going to like Matt Smith better than David Tennant.
I do personally like that interpretation of the Doctor better, but I feel like as an ambassador of Doctor Who to fellows who don't know Doctor Who as well, I need to represent that David Tennant is hugely popular.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
The other thing working against Matt Smith is his seasons are all extremely convoluted. So plot-wise. So it is very hard to just dip in and enjoy an episode.
Right.
Now, David Tennant has some great standalone episodes that his single episode, Blink, is used almost constantly to hook new Doctor Who fans.
Really?
Yeah, it has converted, probably millions of people to Doctor Who is their first thing.
Is Blink.
Blink.
Great.
It's one specific
That was the
episode
right after The Tipping Point, but before Outliers.
Yes.
So dumb.
What other podcasts can you get? Eye-bleeding jokes and references to Malcolm Gladwell. None of them.
All right, so it's newfangled and flashy versus the most Doctor Who.
Are we officially eliminating Matt Smith?
Is he going to be the number one?
I feel like I would be pushing my personal bias.
And that's okay. If sometimes your favorite can be the best. My favorite Star Wars film is Empire Strikes Back. I would argue that it is also the best.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
would
in
most
that
people.
case, I feel like,
but they don't have to anymore because that was like our 3rd episode.
Yeah, we settled that already.
Permanently.
I don't want to sway you away from Matt Smith if you feel like you have a better examination of their bodies of work than we do. I've seen more Tennant than I have Smith.
Okay.
And that's probably why I'm drawn to him, because I'm like, I think he's charming. I think he's a very good actor, and this is not saying I don't think that about Matt Smith. And now I wonder if I'm colored by how good he was in Jessica Jones and going, boy, this guy can do everything.
Mm-hmm.
He can play the Doctor and then play the Purple Man like brilliantly.
Yeah.
So
okay.
You tell me. I think both of us will accept your guidance.
Okay. I'm gonna eliminate Matt Smith. Still.
Okay.
All right. And you know why?
All right.
Because one word, GIF. David Tennant created one of the best GIFs ever when he did his crying in the rain moment. It is one of his most melodramatic moments. It's a truly heartbreaking moment in the show that's legitimately worked really well. And then there's this scene that's just a bit too much where the Doctor's literally sad-faced weeping in the rain. And it is the greatest GIF ever for when something
fantastic,
something you don't like happens. So by a GIF, I'll give it to David Tennant.
That's
over
what
Matt
you do.
Smith.
When all things are equal, you have to go to the GIF tiebreaker. I totally get it. So
all
there
right.
you go. Matt Smith eliminated, and no matter who was eliminated there,
they're all great at this point. They're all the great ones.
And a bunch of people would have been hangry either way.
Yeah.
Did you say hangry? Because I like the idea that people are driving. They're like in the drive-through but haven't hit it yet.
I'll tell you why I said it. I'm going to tell you exactly
Are you
why
currently
I said it.
hangry?
No, I'm not hangry, but Jennifer, I dropped her off at the airport today because we're recording this before Christmas Day to go home, and I'm joining her next week, and she made a bunch of food for me to have dinner.
And it is there for you,
including turkey chili. And I was thinking in that minute, like, when I get home, I'm going to have turkey chili, and it's going to be really delicious. That's what was going through my head.
I really like that people are watching this or listening to this while they're in the drive-thru to get fish fillet and angry about the wrong doctor being selected.
Look, if you're mad about it, have a banana in the car at all times so that before you get your fish fillet sandwich, you can eat. Now, Mark just looks very confused. I don't know if I don't even follow.
I was really confused by that.
I'm saying, like,
a fish fillet sandwich and a banana is your dinner?
Have a banana on the way, like because if you're hangry, you're going to make poor food decisions.
No,
have a banana.
Banana's going to turn brown. Well, look, we'll do best car food later.
Fair enough.
Which, by the way, is chicken fries.
What?
Wow. Every time I think I know him.
Wow. There must be an
great.
amazing
They literally
gift of chicken
come
fries.
in. They come in a holder that is shaped like a cup, so that it will fit in your car cup holder.
Wow. They just know you. If you order chicken fries, you've given up.
Yep.
Fair enough. So that's
shout out to anyone who's hangry right now and about to order chicken fries. All right. Are we going classic or are we going reboot?
Yeah.
This feels like the question for a lot of sci-fi and pop culture things. Do you go with the classic or do you go with the reboot?
And let's look at it through the criteria that we've been talking about.
Okay. So by companions, the Fourth Doctor has one of the most beloved companions ever. Sarah Jane Smith, who came back in that David Tennant episode you were describing, Hal.
Right.
He also has the robot dog K9.
Yes.
He also travels with a Time Lord, or a fellow Time Lord, called Time Lady at the time, Romana. So he's got a bunch of really cool, interesting companions. In terms of episodes, his first few seasons, I think, are arguably, like Empire Strikes Back, just sort of the best Doctor Who.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
They were really gothic, so they introduced this element of horror that really gets played up in modern series. They have a lot of comedy to them. They have a lot of great, amazing monsters. Genesis of the Daleks is probably one of the most important episodes of the Doctor, so Tom Baker's really got the best episodes, arguably, on lock. And then
Andy's got most Doctor Who.
Yeah, I think he does, because, I mean, he's active, he's funny, he's quirky, he's warm and charming, he's
scarf.
Alien, he's got the jelly babies, he's not overtly sexual, but there's, like, Tom Baker's definitely just got a little bit of a vibe to him, that he's just got a little bit of romance pouring off that.
Brit swagger.
Little Brit swagger coming off that scarf. Yeah.
Does it sound like we have our winner?
I think we do.
I do feel so I'll say it this way. In the classic Genesis of the Daleks episode, that plot is that he travels, the Time Lord sent him back in time to murder the Daleks before they began. So he is going to commit genocide against his enemies. And there's a famous scene where he basically has the two wires where he's going to touch them together, commit genocide. The Daleks will be eradicated, and that will prevent future death. But in the moment, it's him making this choice, having this responsibility. And he says, have I the right? And that is how I feel about picking the best Doctor Who. Have I the right?
Hal?
We
right. Feel untethered to that murder of the Daleks.
All right. People of the world, have I the right?
Yep.
You asked. This is what you get. I want to speak. I know there are a lot of people who are Tom Baker loyalists out there are probably pumping their fists and feeling vindicated. I want to speak to the rest of you.
Yes, please do.
You knew that you were going to be angry. You knew. And you can travel with the Doctor to another timeline where you touch the wires together on this decision and your favorite Doctor comes out. And the great thing about Doctor Who and the Doctor as a character is that there are so many great actors who have given so many interpretations of it that there's something for everybody. And certainly while the current run is the most popular worldwide and has kicked off a huge phenomenon, and you can look back and say the older ones were a little bit less expensive and they toiled in a little bit more obscurity, at least in stateside. But again, when you ask somebody to think of Doctor Who, they think of the scarf and the hat and the odd curly hair and that scary theme song as your 3-year-old son stares terrified into a vortex of space and just hears wee, wee, wee. It's very scary, but that's Doctor Who.
Exactly.
There you go. Your best doctor is the 4th Doctor, Tom Baker, asked and answered. Joseph Scrimshaw, thank you for coming here and risking life, digital life and limb.
All I ask is that if you're upset and you ever want to talk to me about it, please do it when you are hangry so that you are yelling at me while also physically eating. And that will lessen the impact for me at conventions.
And if you don't have anything for that, Hal has a banana for you in his car.
Yeah.
Which is a very Doctor Who thing.
What do you want to promote? What's going on? Tell us about where people can find you.
Well, my David Tennant fan site that I'm going to start so people don't get upset because he is really great. I have 2 podcasts. I have the Obsessed podcast and I have a Star Wars podcast feed called Force Center. I got a couple of shows coming up. I've got a New Year's Eve show right here in Los Angeles at Nerd Melt. And then I'm doing a live episode of Obsessed at SF Sketchfest.
If you have never seen Joseph Scrimshaw perform stand-up comedy, you are missing something.
Oh,
he is
thank you.
Absolute delight and makes us laugh every time we get to see him play.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. So if you're curious about shows, you can check out my website at josephscrimshaw.com or go to SF Sketchfest. I'm there the same weekend as We Got This. So you can come see Obsessed and We Got This.
Yeah, and Obsessed is a fantastic podcast that I enjoy as a listener, as well as having been a guest 3 times now?
Yeah, at least. And more in the future.
Yes. And Joseph does a great show with another former guest of ours, Angela Weber, in L.A. called Game Night. And that's happening on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, that's the New Year's Eve show's Game Night.
It also happened. It's also happening randomly, but I've worked with Joseph many times and proud to call him a friend. And I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you guys both. You're both wonderful, charming human beings and 2 of the funniest people I've ever met, and I am honored.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This topic is covered, but there are many more topics to discuss. So please reach out to us on Twitter at We Got This Tweets or check out the Maximum Fun subreddit. A flame war could be happening right now.
Or you can email us at wegotThisPodcast@gmail.com or go to our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/WeGotThisPodcast. Thank you to producer Ken Plume, researcher Kate McManus, who put together a hefty
Kate, a Whovian, a real Whovian.
Yeah, to make
Herculean
us
feat.
Sound like we even knew 10% of what we were talking about.
All I knew was who did how many episodes.
That's right. And graphic designer Uri Kelman and QA engineer Jen Alba.
And thank you, of course, to our musicians, Jonathan Dinerstein and Mike Furman, for our score and theme song, respectively. And thanks to you, our listeners. You are our companions. And we will travel through space and time with you. For Hal Lublin, I'm Mark Gagliardi.
For Mark Gagliardi, I'm Hal Lublin. And don't worry, everybody.
We got this.
We got this.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned.
Listener supported.